Okay, so for the first problem in our project, it is um, 4a squared minus 13a minus 12 equals 0. So I'll just put it down. Um, this is how you should have it written because that's the problem. Um, and your best method right now for doing this would be factoring. And factoring would be your best method because right now it's the most efficient method. It's what is going to allow you to solve this problem. Um, Probably the fastest way, but more importantly, um, your margin of error while using this method will probably decrease because it's just the best method to use for this type of problem. Um, so here again is the problem. Um, and it doesn't factor out in one piece. So what I mean by that is you cannot just factor this out right now. What you need to do is split this middle term into two different terms. The reason you want to do that is so you can split the first part of the equation into like almost two mini problems that will make it easier. So it should read 4a squared minus 16a plus 3a minus 12 equals 0. Just like this. And again, the reason you want to do this is so you can make your life easier and split it into two smaller problems. And this just makes it a lot easier to factor. Probably the only way to factor also. Okay, so you split it into two different problems. I like to put a line between the two different problems just to indicate that that's how I should do it. And so you ask yourself, what is common between 4a squared and negative 16a? Well, they're both divisible by 4, and they both have at least one a. So what's common between the two is 4a. And then you put a parentheses because you're about to start factoring. Ugh. Just like this. So you're gonna start factoring. And then so you ask yourself, 4a times what gives you 4a squared? Well, you put an a because 4a times a is 4a squared. And then you ask yourself again, 4a times what gives you negative 16a? That would be 4. Or I guess negative 4 in this case. And it should read like that. 4a times a minus 4. And that's your first part of the factoring. Now you move on to the second part of the problem. So you ask yourself the exact same questions. You have 3a and you have negative 12. So what do 3a and negative 12 have in common? Well, they have 3 in common. And then you start your parentheses. You write it exactly how I have it. So plus 3, and then you open your parentheses, and again, you ask yourself the same question. So 3 times what gives you 3a? Well, a. So it'd be 3 times a gives you 3a. And then 3 times what gives you negative 12? That would be negative 4. Again, it's equal to 0. So this is how you should have it broken down, which is good because what you wanted at the end of the day was to have a minus 4 in both parentheses. So far, so good. So what you need to do now is take what's outside of the parentheses, 4a, and on the other side of the problem, plus 3. And you need to put those into parentheses. So 4a and the plus 3 in parentheses. And since you have a minus 4 in both parentheses, you only need to write it one time afterwards. So it should read like this. In parentheses, 4a plus 3 times, in parentheses, a minus 4, and that equals 0. Now, these two in parentheses are going to give you the value of a, and that's what we're looking for. So you need to use what's in the parentheses to solve for a. So you set them up like smaller equations. And the first one, we're going to do the first one in the parentheses. So 4a plus 3 equals 0. Again, we're just going to write it like that. And the first part of the problem is very simple. Actually, this entire process is very simple. Towards the end here, all you have to do is subtract 3 from both sides, just like I'm doing. And that'll give you 4a equals negative 3 right here. And then you have to do the opposite of multiplication, so that would be division. You divide both sides by 4, and that will give you a alone. So a equals negative 3/4. So that's one value. I mean, we're halfway done finding our values for a. Now we just need to solve the other part of the problem. And that would be a minus 4 equals 0. Now this is very simple. All you have to do is add 4 to both sides, and you get a equals 4. And you're pretty much done. You found your values for a that make the equation true. And then you just put them like this, and you write them out.